The hour of 7 o'clock having arrived, we're going to call the council to order. Let the roll reflect that all council members are in attendance with the exception of Councilmember Vaughn and Fulch. A quorum has been established. Council, we have before us this evening the minutes of the regular city council meeting and council workshop on June 18th. Any additions or corrections to the minutes of those two meetings? Seeing none, they stand approved. Items to be considered, any additional council items to be considered? Okay, we'll go to a consent agenda. Council, what's your wish? Councilmember Brox makes a motion to approve, second by Councilmember Liefeld. That motion is now before the body. Is there discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we go under awarding of contracts of public hearing. We have tonight three public hearings. The first one in relation to a vacation of right-of-way at Adams Street, south of 3rd Street. Adams Street south of 3rd Street, the Haglet property. John, will you please introduce that item? And welcome to the meeting. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I'll have before you in a moment a map showing a picture of the area in question tonight for our first public hearing, and that would be for a vacation of right-of-way, which would be on Adams Street in eastern Hastings. The applicants, Mike and Jackie Helget, are requesting a partial vacation of the right-of-way, and I will point out in just a moment here some of the areas of the right-of-way that we're looking at. On the screen coming wake here is Adams Street. This is 3rd Street to the north, Lake Isabel to the south. This is an existing stub street that goes between here. It accesses a property here on the east side of Adams Street, as well as this area in blue, which was purchased by the Helgets recently. They are proposing to build a home on this property. They have torn down the existing home that was there. This is the right-of-way. It's 66 feet wide. A portion of that right-of-way was previously vacated. That's the area in red. That was done some time ago to accommodate construction of this house down here. What they're proposing to do is to vacate what's in the striped area here, which would be the west half of the right-of-way through this section, and then narrowing it down to 13 feet as you go towards the lake. The reason for this jog and the differences in the width are to maintain a 20-foot width between 3rd Street and the lake. In other vacations that we've reviewed in the past, it's been an objective to maintain access to the lake, and a rationale that a 20-foot wide area would do that. When you take a look practically at what's there today, you see this street here, which is about 14 feet wide, that was reconstructed. All the streets and the utilities are within the eastern half of this right-of-way that will not be affected by the vacation. All the area here in red and striped is free of utilities and free of any infrastructure on that. So we are recommending approval of the vacation as is shown before you. As part of the vacation, we did have a public hearing that went out to every property owner within 350 feet of the property. We have not heard any comments back to this date. So tonight we're asking to hold the public hearing tonight and then to take action on the vacation request as shown here. And I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, John, for that presentation. What I'm going to do is open the public hearing. Anyone here who would like to speak to this particular issue, the vacation of right-of-way as described by John? Anyone here who would like to speak to that particular issue? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Council, let's tackle this issue. What's your wish? Any discussion? Okay. I'll seek a motion. Councilmember Lund makes a motion to approve, second by Councilmember Brox. That motion is now before the body. Is there any additional information or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the vacation say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have a public hearing to amend City Code Chapter 155. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I'm just making sure I'm on the right ordinance amendment. Yes, fence height is first.
Yes,
So we're asked tonight to hold a second hearing and public hearing to consider a change to the fence height provision of the City Code. Now, the ordinance itself would be amended. The practical effect of this would be no. We have been using as a matter of policy for the past 15, 16 years, a policy that fences must be no more than 42 inches or 3.5 feet within the front yard. Upon review of the code itself, we found that that language was absent from it. So we thought it would be a good idea to put into the ordinance what we've been doing as practice. And so that is the extent of the ordinance amendment before us tonight, is to add that provision to establish the 3.5 feet or 42-inch maximum height for fences in the front yard. The rationale for this is we do have up to 6 feet on the sides of the home and in the rear of the property. It's been a general practice that anything in front of the home be a little bit smaller in height so that you can balance the needs for confinement and demarcation with opening up the property a little bit more for visibility. So that is the ordinance amendment before you tonight. We did have the Planning Commission review this at their June 11th meeting, and they voted 5-0 to recommend approval as presented. Thank you.
All right, John, thank you very much. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Before us, is there anyone here who would like to speak to the city code amendment to chapter 155, fence height in the front of the property, 42 inches? Anyone here would like to speak to that particular issue? You have a question, sir? Please come to the microphone. Give your name and address. Thank you for being here at the meeting. Glad to have you here.
My name is Fred Weiland. I live at 413 2nd Street West.
Okay, yeah, Fred, you had a question?
Yeah, so and there's a couple different things that come to my mind here, but hedges, for instance, is that included in how you define a fence?
I think it's only, John, you can, I don't think so. I think it's just a structure, but.
Yeah, I can address that, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this would only be for structural fences, not for hedges.
Okay. And, you know, how is this, I guess in consideration, how does this affect people that, you know, maybe have privacy needs? You know, that want that privacy. I mean, they bought the property, they've paid for property, if they've got 6-foot sides, I mean, and they want that 6-foot facing, is it up to us as a city to decide that they've got to have a standard 42-inch high fence? Or if they feel they need that privacy, that we're infringing on that? I'm just throwing this out as a question.
It's a rhetorical question. Sure, thank you. Okay, thank you for your testimony. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council, let's talk about this issue, the ordinance amendment to chapter 155. Councilmember Balsani.
Thank you, Your Honor. John, are the setbacks for fencing, and in this case, front yard fence, are those in place already? Do we have ordinances that say they have to be a certain distance from the property line or the street?
We have a couple things in place at the moment, council member. We don't have a specific setback requirement from property lines. Theoretically, you could build a fence right up to the property line itself. Now, there are some items that we have in place that would prohibit that. One, we have a fencing easement policy that in certain larger easements, drainage and utility easements, or larger utilities, the fences cannot be placed in there because they would impede on either the drainage or impede on the access to those utilities in the future. So we have those in place. We also have regulations in place on corner lots from a visibility standpoint. So we have a 25-foot site triangle, and we prohibit things of a certain height within those areas.
All right, and because that was my second question, is corner lots then. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Brox.
John, maybe you can just describe for us or explain where these measurements come from. Are they similar in other communities? Are they, you know, where do these numbers come from? I think that would be helpful to know.
Sure. I think the requirements, the height limitations are pretty common from community to community, especially the 6-foot height limit in the rear yards. In the front yards, I've seen variations between 3 and 4 feet on those types of properties.
Councilmember Lund.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed it on the corner lot. Thank you, Your Honor. But when the side of the house is actually the front of your adjacent home, I mean, is that gonna be considered still side, or how does that work?
It would be what we determined to be the front, which is generally gonna be where the front door is located at, where the property is addressed from. Those are a few ways in which it's determined. Usually it's pretty obvious, but in some places it's not. In that situation, anything, just I guess this isn't showing up. If you take a look at a house, the distance between the house and the street, that's the front yard. The areas to the side of that, going to the rear, would not be front.
No matter if they're on a corner or not. So you could have somebody that has a 6-foot tall fence and then somebody that has a 3.5 foot.
Correct.
Because you have a corner and, okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. I must say, you know, according to the testimony there, I've never had anyone ever request a fence that was higher than 3.5, 4 feet in their front yard. I don't think that would be appropriate in a neighborhood. I'd want to know what the heck they were hiding behind there, probably, if they were that high, 6 feet going all the way around. But I don't think, I think when we take a look at the standard, we have to think about what's a reasonable standard. And when I think of 3.5 feet or 42 inches, that's a reasonable standard, considering the front of a property. So, and more of a uniform deal. Councilmember Balsanic?
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, then that brings up a question, which Mr. Weiland raised. If a person did want a 6-foot fence, if we pass this, and a person comes along and says, well, I really would like a 6-foot fence for the sake of privacy, whatever, it could be dogs, you know, for protection and so on and so forth, for protection of the public, I'm assuming. Could a 6-foot fence be granted with a variance then, or does the ordinance strictly prohibit anything higher than 4 feet or 42 inches?
Sure. A council member, a variance could be considered in a situation where one wanted to go higher than 42 inches. It would just be incumbent to find some rationale to do that.
Okay, I'll seek a motion, Council. Councilmember Brox makes a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilmember Lightfeld. Discussion. Is there any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Next, we have a public hearing in regards to special use permits. John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. In the next ordinance amendment here, we are adding stipulations to our special use permit regulations. 3 things that we're doing. One of them is adding a 1-year sunset clause provision to the code on the issuance of new permits. Now, from a practical standpoint, we've had a boilerplate condition on for 15, 16 years that says the similar thing, but we thought it would be best to codify that within the city code itself. And so we're asking that be included, that every special use permit that is issued, if there's work that's not come forward to make it active within a 1-year period, then it would be null and void. The second thing would be to add a limitation for non-use of a permit. If a permit is not used for a period of 3 years or longer, then it would be null and void at that point. And then also adding a provision in here to record permits on properties with Dakota County, so that the uses and benefits that the permit establishes would be recorded within the property itself. So at the Planning Commission level, we did discuss this on a couple of different occasions. We held a public hearing on April 23rd. We had no public testimony. Had some discussions at that meeting related to the effect on business flexibility, rationale for recording, and effect on some of the existing permits. Ultimately, we came back with a couple of modifications on the June 11th meeting, where the recommendation for approval was passed unanimously by the Planning Commission. So that is what I have before you tonight. I can stand for any questions, or you can open up the public hearing.
Thank you, John. I will do that. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Any comment in regards to City Code Chapters 30, 155 in regards to special use permits? Special use permits. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council, we have this issue before us. What's your wish? Councilmember Brox makes a motion to approve, seconded. by Councilmember Liefeld. That motion is now before the body. Council discussion. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have a presentation of the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And Melanie, our distinguished finance director, is here. And by the way, Melanie, very happy birthday.
Thank
Okay?
you.
I'm sure you marked on your calendar you were glad to be here on your birthday.
Absolutely.
It was dedication, I'll tell you that. So happy birthday, and I'll turn it over to you, and welcome to the meeting.
All right, thank you, Mayor Hicks and council members. Our 2017 financial audit is complete, and tonight we have Nancy Schultzenberg from Bergen KDV to present some of the highlights for you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, administration. I'd like to start out by thanking you for giving me some time tonight to go over the results of our audit. So I did put the highlights in a PowerPoint presentation so we don't have to spend time going through the booklets that you received. First of all, our ultimate goal as your auditors is to issue an opinion on your financial statements. Basically, our opinion indicates that the financial statements are management's responsibility, and it is our responsibility as your auditors to review and test the numbers that are in the financial statements along with the disclosures related to that. What we're issuing for the year ended December 31st, 2017 is an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that we as your auditors can offer. It is an indication that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects based on our audit. In addition to that opinion letter, we have several other communications that we provide. First of all, we issue a report on the results of our audit performed in accordance with government auditing standards. So because of some of the federal funding that the city receives, we as your auditors are required to take a closer look at your internal controls and also at your compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, grants, those things. Based on that, we did have 2 internal control findings this year. That would be new for the city compared to the previous year. And they're kind of a combination of the experiences that you had at the city. First of all, we had some material audit adjustments. You had transition in your finance department. You had some openings in your finance department throughout the year, and also a change in auditors. So a fresh set of eyes on things, so we did find some things that we did adjust as part of the audit. And then we also are issuing a lack of segregation of accounting duties comment. And this comment falls in a middle level finding as a significant deficiency. So we're allowed 3 different choices when we look at internal control findings. The first one would be a material weakness. That's the most significant. And then the second one is this one where your lack of segregation falls a significant deficiency. So it's less severe than that material weakness, but still does merit some attention by the governing body for the city. So basically what we saw in this category is the city has good controls and segregation, but because of some of the turnover, there were some gaps in some of the reviews and approvals for the information. So this is one that we would expect would go away next year, but we will look at it again. In addition to that report, we issue a report on our results of testing Minnesota legal compliance. So on an annual basis, the Office of the State Auditor gives you a checklist, and it covers 7 broad categories of legal compliance, and we complete that checklist as part of our audit. Based on that completion, we had no findings related to state statute for the year ending December 31st, 2017. And then we have a communication letter that we issue, and in there we have several pages that are titled Required Communication. This would be our tool if we had anything that we uncovered that was significant, or if we had any difficulties or disagreements with management, we would put that there. And I just want to tell you tonight that none of what we put in that required communication strays from our standard boilerplate language. So clean bill of health, if you will. And then finally, we have several pages of financial analysis and recommendations, and I'm going to spend some time going over those results at a high level tonight. So starting with your general fund, this chart shows you your fund balance for the last 5 years, and you can see it has been increasing each of the years that we're looking at. For 2017, it's up about 4.7% and ended the year at just over $5,135,000. When we look at the categories, the unassigned is the green. That represents most of your fund balance. And that is something that the state auditors look at and recommend that not less than 5 months of expenditures be in that balance. So right now, You are at 42.9% of your budgeted expenditures, which is 5 months. So right where the state is recommending that the city be. The city's policy outlines 30 to 40% as a range for your general fund balance. So again, right within that range. The restricted number that you see there has to do with the historical property that you have within the city, money that has been collected and set aside for spending on that. And then finally, you'll see a non-spendable, which is the smallest portion on the bottom there, the orange. That relates to things that the city has already spent money on. So money has left the building, not available for future spending. Prepaids, inventory, those types of things. All right, so looking at the revenues then, these two pie charts show your revenues for 2016 and 17 as a percentage of the whole. And you can see for the city of Hastings, by far your largest portion of revenue in the general fund comes in the way of property taxes and special assessments, making up 71 and 72%. When you look at your sources, you can see that they're very consistent from year to year. So that allows for consistent budgeting both on the revenue and expenditure side. Looking at those same revenues in a little bit different way as a dollar amount, and then comparing them over the 5 years that we're looking at. Overall, your revenues were down just under $280,000 for the year, and that comes in several categories. First of all, taxes and assessments, down about $137,000 related to just a lower levy in the general fund for the year. The intergovernmental category, down about $100,000, and that is primarily related to some state money that was allocated to the Mill and Overlay Fund for 2017. And then finally, charges for services, down about $112,000, related to really increased amounts in 2016 related to an insurance commission that was received, a one-time type thing. Switching gears then to the expenditures in the general fund, again as a percentage of the whole, looking at the functions. In the general fund, police is your largest spending category, very typical for cities, making up 52% each of the years that we're looking there. And similar to the revenues, your percentages are very consistent from year to year. And then we do have a chart, same information in a little bit different way over 5 years looking at your expenditures. For the general fund, these were very consistent from 2016 to 2017, increasing just $41,000 for the year. And that really came across several categories, offset by a decrease in your capital outlay. I think 2016 you had a snowplow and a dump truck that you purchased, and this year you had smaller expenditures in the way of computer purchases. In the next couple charts, we take a look at the budget. So this is where the council is involved in approving the budget for the city for the year. And on the revenue side of things, there was a 1.4% variance. Revenues came in just under budgeted amounts by the 1.4%. And most all of that comes in that intergovernmental category. And that has to do, again, with that MSA money that was allocated to the Mill and Overlay Fund. Other categories very consistent with budgeted amounts. The expenditures, there was a larger variance, about a 6.9%. They were under budget by $706,000. And there are 4 categories that primarily account for that. First of all, your general government, under budget by about $84,000, really across all categories, nothing that jumps out as significant.
Nancy, I'm gonna assume that where it says police, it's also fire, that's our public safety.
No,
or does that say police?
actually, the fire and ambulance are in a separate fund, and
Okay.
we will quickly take a look at that
Okay,
in
put
one
on the
one
revenues.
slide. Yep. So that category, while we're on that, the police is under budget by about $212,000, open officer positions throughout the year. Public Works also relates to salaries being under budget. There was a retirement in that function and a gap in the replacement of it. And then finally, your capital outlay, under by about $235,000, and that had to do with a roofing project that was delayed until 2018. So all very explainable. And here is your fire and ambulance special revenue fund.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. That fund had a good year. If we look at 2017 revenues over expenditures, increasing your total fund balance by about $143,000. And what you're seeing here is an increase in calls that were taken during the year, and then also an increase in the levy related to this fund. And then you do have one other fairly significant special revenue fund. It's your Parks and Recreation. And this, similar to the fire and ambulance, a lot of cities put in their general fund, but you have it separated, so we added a chart to talk about that just a little bit. Revenues up and expenditures up. Overall, your fund balance increased by about $150,000 for the year. So positive operations in that fund as well. That is what I have for your governmental funds. The next several slides are your enterprise funds. So first of all, what I want to tell you, there's several enterprise funds, and what we're showing you is total operating revenues and operating expenses to kind of see how things are going with the fees that you're collecting for the services that you're providing. And then also operating income two ways. So the third line there, the first way we're looking at operating income includes depreciation. So depreciation is that non-cash item. It's using up those capital assets that you have over their useful life, amortizing them, if you will. So that expense is included there, but not included in the bottom line. And I think it's good to look at it both ways because you want to be aware of how the depreciation is affecting your current fees. So for the water fund, you actually had operating income even with the depreciation included for the first time since 2013. So positive improvement in that fund for 2017. And really, it comes in the way of fewer operating expenses with fewer chemical purchases than in 2016. And moving to the sewer fund, you can see that your operating revenues are up about $100,000 here. There were increased fees that were approved by the council, and you began collecting those during 2017, not a full year yet, but during 2017. So you'll see, again, increased operating revenues in 2018. You do see, for the last 4 years in this fund, an operating loss when we're adding the depreciation in. So that's indication that you are covering a portion of that depreciation, but not all of it with the current fees. So keep an eye on that one as you go forward and those fees become collected in a full year of those fees next year. Stormwater fund appears to be operating appropriately. You're having an increase in your revenues, increased fees, and an increase in your expense, or actually a small decrease in your expenses, allowing the operating income of $105,000 for the year. So again, positive operations in that fund. And then finally, your last enterprise fund is the hydro fund. And 2017 looks a little bit different. There was a dewatering project that occurs once every 5 years. So you'll see that for the first time in 2017 on this chart. So indicating there was an operating loss, but if you look to the years previous, there's an operating income in each one of those years. Questions on any of those funds? All right, then I just have two last charts that take a look at your tax information. First of all, your tax capacity rates, and you can see that those have decreased by about 6% from 2013 to 2017. And the next slide really tells the story. The blue bar on the left is your tax levy, the certified levy for the city, and you can see if you look overall, that has increased from 2013 to 2017. The green bar on the right-hand side is your tax capacity. So because of increasing property values, you've been able to increase your levy with actually decreasing your property tax rate. So good news for the taxpayers. And that is what I have. I would entertain any questions.
Thank you, Nancy. Council, is there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Pretty clear, cut and dry. Thank you so much for coming down here and celebrating Melanie's birthday with us.
Happy to be here.
For that fine report. We
All right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, council, next on our agenda is the city partnership with School District 200, YMCA, and Community Conversations. Melanie?
Thank you, Your Honor and Council. You have before you tonight a recommendation from the Finance Committee. This is the initiative that the council held a workshop on June 8th to talk about partnering with the YMCA and the school district. And essentially, it's a community conversation about and having some engagement processes and some learning sessions about being a welcoming community. So at the June 8th workshop, the council referred this item to the Finance Committee because there was a financial request. The total request is for the city to share $19,000. We would split it out over 2 budget years, Your Honor and Council. So $9,500 in 2018 and $9,500 as part of the 2019 budget. So the Finance Committee met on this on June 25th and talked about the program and talked about the initiative. And they have forwarded a recommendation to allocate the $9,500 within the 2018 budget. So we would ask for a budget adjustment and then include the second half, the additional $9,500 in the 2019 budget for consideration, because we're in the middle of that process right now. So that's a recommendation of the Finance Committee. Of course, we have 2 members of the committee here if they choose to add anything to my summary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melanie, for that presentation. Council, this issue is before us. What's your wish? Councilmember Liefeld makes a motion to approve, second by Councilmember Brox. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember Balsanic.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Call this a minority report, I guess. I lobbied pretty hard to see if we could get the YMCA to solicit funds from other community organizations before they came to the city. I just feel, I feel that $19,000 is a lot of money. I think a lot of people out there in the public feel that $19,000 is a lot of money. And I know we have discretionary funds regarding our budget for the city, and we can, according to staff, afford the $9,500 a year to meet the request from the YMCA. I still felt that it would be better if this is a program that is going to include the community, that we should ask the community for funding, either as private donations, donations from different organizations like the Legion, VFW, the various churches in town, and so forth. That being said, as my lobbying effort, it was met with the fact that there was a majority that wanted the city to go ahead and spend the funds. Do understand that I am not opposed to this program that the YMCA is proposing to present to the community in terms of a multifaceted initiative. I embrace it. I welcome it. It certainly is needed, and it is a worthy goal that we should all strive to achieve. But I have my problems with the way it was funded. However, as I said, when it came time for a vote on the committee, and being a member of the Finance Committee, I acquiesced and voted in favor of it because of the words that were presented by the other 2 members of the committee. So I've said my piece. I don't agree with the way that it is being funded, but I will vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Councilmember Liefeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilmember Balsanic, thank you for your support of this. I would like to point out that this isn't something that the YMCA came to the city with. This is something that the community said, hey, we need some support, we need some partners, and the YMCA obviously being a strong partner when it comes to community development and community conversation, diversity and inclusiveness. So I do want to mention to those who are listening, and we talk about this every couple meetings, what this is going to look like. And my opinion on it is, as a city, this piece right here is, it's really, I think, putting our money where our mouth is and saying, this is so important to us as a community that we are going to step in. We are going to put in this money, and you're right, $19,000 is a lot of money. And so is, to say that that's a lot of money and to try and put a price tag on the future of our community, I think $19,000 will be a drop in the bucket when my children's children and such are looking at a diverse and welcoming community. And so what we're aiming for here, I believe, what I'm aiming for is to get this started, to put something in front of all of the people of Hastings, and this is open to everyone. Anyone have questions, stop at the Y, stop at the city, contact a council member. We'd love to talk to you about this. This is just getting started. I mean, this is going to be years and years in the making of what it's going to look like for the city of Hastings and the people who are here, the new people who will come here as a result, and those of us who've been here for a long time. So I just want to throw out there that the school district, the city of Hastings, and thank you to the YMCA for partnering with us in this. So, you know, as a huge financial contributor, by the way, thank you, council member. They have been very, very generous, the YMCA has, in their contribution towards seeing this in our community. So I just wanted to take a moment that this was not driven by the YMCA. Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilmember Brox?
Thank you, and I agree with Councilmember Liefeld. I think that this is an important thing. I originally was not in favor of it. I think there is a place in our communities for social movements, and I think the public more and more is demanding that the cities and states and federal government get involved in things in a leadership capacity. And so while in general, there's times when constituents demand something, then need something that I may not agree with, but I'm willing to support this because I think it's important that everyone's voices are heard equally. And I think that if we're gonna lead in something, then we have to put our money where our mouth is. We have to be willing to step out and move forward and carry the torch when other people might not be on board. So I did advocate pretty hard for this in our committee meeting, which may surprise some people. But I think that as I've been thinking about it, as I've talked to Derek with the YMCA, I think this is something that we can all work together on. It's something that the city and the chamber and the YMCA and the school district and businesses, and I think we need more of that collaboration in our community. And if this is the vehicle that we use to have that collaboration, then I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. I'll just point this out, that I think this is a very important project. I called for this in the State of the City address. I think it's off to a fantastic start. I think many of you would agree with the earlier programs that we've had. Thank you, Councilmember Balsanic, for seeing the value in that. Appreciate it. And I think that the contribution by the Y is significant. The $19,000 that we're approving tonight only represents, take that and multiply it by 2.5, and then you'll get the YMCA's contribution into it. So I think with their help, we were able to reach our goals in terms of our community conversation. So I think it's a significant move, and I appreciate everyone involved in it. I need a motion to, Councilmember, what's that? I do have a motion? Okay, we do have a motion before us. Is there any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, ladies and gentlemen, the City Council will be going into closed-door session. I will announce that, but before we go into closed-door session, I'm going to go to comments from the audience. Is there any comments from the audience before the council goes into closed-door session? Any comments from the audience this evening? Okay, seeing none, council, announcements. Are there announcements? Any announcements? Councilmember Balsanic? You're reaching for your calendar. There must be something. Okay. Okay. I have a few announcements, council, before we break into closed-door session. First of all, upcoming meetings. First of all, on July 19th coming up here, everyone, it'll be Councilmember Brox's birthday. Is that right? Aha. No, it's not in September. Didn't we do that last year? why don't we give you 2 birthdays this year, and we'll just start subtracting? Okay, no problem. You know, I thought of that earlier today. I said, you know, I thought it was in the fall.
It came up in the system as July birthday.
We're gonna have to change the system. But maybe you have 2 birthdays and we don't know about it. Okay. On Tuesday, July 10th, tomorrow, the Utilities Committee of the City Council, chaired by Councilmember Balsanic, also with Councilmembers Brox and Lund, will meet to discuss the residential solid waste request for proposals. So that's tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. All of these meetings are gonna be at Hastings City Hall. On Thursday, July 12th, there's a joint meeting between the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Public Safety Advisory Commission. They'll be meeting at the police station in the training room over here at 150th 3rd Street East to discuss the 2018 National Night Out and the ribbon cutting ceremony for Lions Park. At 6:30 that evening here at City Hall, Hedro will be meeting. That's on Thursday, July 12th. On Monday, July 16th, 7 p.m., the Planning Commission will be meeting. And on Tuesday, July 17th, the Heritage Preservation Commission will be meeting here at 7 p.m. Wednesday, July 18th, the City Council will be meeting in a workshop to discuss council vision and priorities. And then on Monday, July 23rd at 7 p.m., 2 weeks from tonight, the City Council will be meeting at our next regular scheduled meeting. A couple other things of note. First of all, on Monday, July 16th, there's the next community conversation discussion, creating a welcoming community. This is a follow-up from the event that was held last April 29th. This will be held at the high school commons area from 6 to 7:30, open to everyone in the public. Please go. It's very important information. And there will be more information about this coming up, available on the city website. That's again Monday, July 16th, 7:30, from 6 to 7:30 at the high school. Congratulations also, we'd like to congratulate Sharon Hoffman Advent, who had been inducted into the Minnesota Business Hall of Fame class of 2018 later this month, so a real congratulations to her. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite weekends of the whole year is coming up. Hastings Rivertown Days will be on July 20th through the 22nd. I see Christy Bars is here from the Chamber and all the fine work that her and her group has done with city staff planning Rivertown Days, and that's coming up shortly in 2 weekends. And so get ready for Rivertown Days. I know we'll be around, council members will be around, so let's look forward to another great holiday festival here in Hastings. Council, we have no other business before us. We're about ready to go into closed door session. I have to make an announcement about that. The meeting will now be closed pursuant to open meeting law, and specifically Minnesota Statute 13D.05, subdivision 3A, which allows a public body to close a meeting to evaluate the performance of an individual who is subject to its authority. The employee who has been asked to visit with us tonight with the City Council is the Fire and EMS Director, Mike Shute. So we're going to have a meeting here in just a moment, so I will take a motion to suspend our open meeting for the purpose of going into closed door. Motion to, okay.